starting to see all the stuff that has come out from Meta recently reinforce something that I think we'll talk about, which is, I sued and won a case against them and just got to understand what this company was purporting to be and advertising itself as to its community and its users and what its motives and agenda really was.
One Quick Thing brings you easy, actionable ways to support your local community in times where we need it most. If you're feeling overwhelmed and don't know where to start, join us on this journey as we make meaningful connections with local businesses, organizations, and neighbors. On today's episode, we have Emmett Soldati, owner of Teetotaler Café and expert on all things community. We chat about everything from his lawsuit with Meta to contra dancing at the Fox Run Mall.
We're bringing the heat today.
Getting a little cozy. I know we were chatting about how a couple of days ago we were like, we didn't have the spirit to like talk about podcast stuff just with like the inauguration and everything. And then we saw your Instagram stories yesterday morning and we were like, let's talk about Meta. Let's go. And we saw the fire in your eyes and we're like, maybe he's going to want to talk some shit today. So
absolutely. I mean, it's like kind of sad that I'm like, I got to get off whatever. And I was like, I was like, I got so many thoughts I got to share and I got to post it on this platform.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's really valuable to share that. And I think that you have a perspective that is really unique. And you have an insight that a lot of people don't have. And a lot of people are really uncomfortable right now. And I think that your voice is really important to hear.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm definitely like conflicted where there's like so much around not to like step on the story here, but like I gotta like do this for me and I have to like I gotta get off. It's like this isn't about my business or my political career. It's like Emmett needs to get off. I can't do this.
Yeah.
And I'm also like, and so it's not like everyone join with me and whatever, like everyone has to come with me, but there is also part of me I'm like, oh, a lot of people have engaged and like, oh, I've been conflicted in these ways or I want to talk about these things. And I'm like, I'm just going to be like, after I get off Instagram, text him when like, are you still on Instagram, Emily? Like, have you gotten that? It's like, here's the number 8 reason you should, I don't know how I'm going to continue to communicate it, but
yeah, please do that.
I definitely just feel like it's time.
Yeah. Yeah.
What brought you to that kind of place? Had you been thinking about stepping back from social media? I know it's a huge part of what you do and a huge part of Teetotaler's presence. So can you tell me a little bit about kind of your decision to get there?
Actually deleted my Facebook. I never was a big personal Instagram user. I always had it for my business, and that was very big for Teetotaler, which is why the deletion that happened later was important. I was never a big personal user. I was fairly big on Facebook, and after the Cambridge Analytica stuff happened back in 2015, 2016, I was like, ick. No way. Like I'm selling myself to the devil here. Like we have no idea how deep the sort of like threads of and tentacles of power go, and that they can sell themselves out at any moment, and that there's clearly one person at the top that really does control it, Mark Zuckerberg, that is unreliable and untrustworthy as sort of like an agent of an open marketplace of ideas. So I was like, I'm out, and I deleted my account and lived without like a personal voice on the internet. Eventually, not that I knew at the time, I ended up running for office. And so it's like, you got to get a Twitter and you got to get a Facebook and you got to get Instagram. So I actually, you can scroll back and see like one of my first posts on Instagram was gearing up to run for office. And then inevitably, didn't win. Like, and then I was like, oh, here's a way to post cute selfies and whatever. And, figure skating videos. And I sort of then got into it a little bit more. And so really, I've been through this road. This is my second rodeo. It's not my first rodeo. And starting to see all the stuff that has come out from Meta recently reinforce something that I think we'll talk about, which is, I sued and won a case against them and just got to understand what this company was purporting to be and advertising itself as to its community and its users and what its motives and agenda really was, and what the most latest news stories of like, no more fact checking and groveling at the feet of a president of the United States and bending to that, and knowing that the largest shareholder / owner, Mark Zuckerberg, thinks that Meta is too emasculated. Like all those things are just like, no, I actually don't want to participate in this, and I don't want to contribute to it, and I don't want to be part of it. Since kind of then like that sort of political principled stance articulating itself and sharing it, it has really dawned on me that so much of my life, as with so many of our lives, has changed and been dictated, and we've socialized based on the assumption that we always have an app in our phone that we can go to. And I have just really longed for, or been curious about, what would my life look like? Who would I become socially if I didn't know? Well, I could just go text, or DM someone, or go like get content or scroll or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like a big community guy. I love meeting people. I'm open to the world. I love travel. I love connecting. And I actually think that there's more connection that's possible if there's more people that are offline and like spending more of their time offline. And so for me, it now is really a personal thing of like, I'm more curious about who I will become in an environment where there isn't that sort of dopamine hit that I could just take, and then, oh, I don't need to go out dancing tonight, or I don't need to like get out of my comfort zone.
I think we're starting to see in these last few weeks, I feel like I'm sensing that culture shift start to pick up steam in a way I hadn't before. I think something happened to us collectively when TikTok went down for 18 hours. It was like everyone kind
18
of
minutes. What was that?
Yeah.
It was like, oh.
it was almost like a spell snapped, and we were like, wait a minute, what if happens if we just walk away? And we're starting to see that. I personally, I would love to hear more about, if you could sort of share more about the story, the story with the Meta lawsuit, and kind of how that came about and where that's left you.
So basically, Meta, then Facebook, bought Instagram, and I had an Instagram account for my Café teetotaler, and in 2018 they deleted it. And this was a business, like I was selling bubble tea and whatever, and I also had like paid, I'd like advertised on it, boosted it and so forth. And so when they delete your account, they delete all your content, they delete all your followers, which was sort of like particularly annoying to me, because Teetotaler had previously just gone through this very unexpected earned media campaign, or we had this big billboard, we were in the national press, we got a lot of big attention, and Instagram became that platform that kind of captured those connections. Like, people all over the country followed us because they were like, oh, we saw the billboard, that was really cool. All that's gone. And so it's like, not only am I like, do people think our business is closed, we don't have our main channel to advertise, but all of those connections that we had built up relying on the usability of this platform and its existence were gone. It's like I can't just go back to all of those random people and find them and be like, wait, please follow us again.
Yeah.
And so as anyone who has had any issue with any product on Facebook would know, there is no human being staffed to help you anywhere. And that was true in 2018, and it is more true to this day. And so I was feverishly I just want the account back. I contacted the press at facebook.com. I tweeted at them. Those tweets still are up and exist. I think I contacted if somebody dies, there's a specific form you can fill out to be obtain the information. I was like, I'm not dead, but hey, I need to get this stuff. And so nothing. And so ultimately I learned from reading the terms of service that we all have with Instagram, you basically have no recourse. There's no remedy, except you can file a claim in your local small claims court. And wouldn't you know, Emmett Soldati loves the Dover District Circuit Court, small claims court. So I was like, well, that's what I'm going to do. So I filed a small claim. I put the maximum amount, $10,000, and was like, you deleted my account. I want it back. I want this money, whatever. It's very short. And they hired a lawyer, and they were like, motion to dismiss, get rid of this case. And the case got dismissed. And they kind of threw the book at me too. And I sort of felt like, whatever, I gave my best shot. But when I read the dismissal that they filed, it was like a stack of paper. They were trying to overwhelm me. I started reading through it, and I was like, none of this makes any sense. It's all made up. It's all bogus. It's all they were like, Instagram is not related to Facebook. I'm like, yep, you bought them and then you merged them. That's this might have been true 4 years ago. It just was such a hack job. And so there was part of me that was like, wait a second, they don't have a leg to stand on, and they just overwhelmed the court with all this paperwork. So I appealed it, And that appeal went to the Supreme Court of New Hampshire. And this was like the day before like my business shut down from COVID. I like had oral arguments in front of the justices, and like literally you can see the video online where I'm like, may it please the court, Your Honor, I'm a baker and a barista and I just want my account back.
Yeah.
And Facebook had hired, I think, to date 4 law firms. They subsequently would hire another law firm. But unanimously, I won that case.
Good.
And that case said, basically, I did have a right to have a hearing, blah, blah, blah. They shouldn't have dismissed the case, shouldn't have thrown it out. Facebook is not immune to these kind of things. Long story short, and by long story, I mean 6 years went by. And then I finally got that initial small claim here in Dover and was like, they deleted my account. And at this point, 6 years later, their position was, no, we didn't. You did. And I'm like, get out of Dodge. Yeah, it was bogus. It's its own whole story. But long story short, the small claims court said, actually, after reviewing the case, you win, and that you had a contract and Facebook breached the contract and they owed you your account and they didn't provide it for you. So I got like $1,000 or something like that. 6 years later.
Yeah.
Whatever. But I would say the thing I really learned is that one of the things I learned is that Facebook, then Meta, their legal team is larger than most multinational law firms. And that litigation is not a requirement for the exposure that their business faces. It is a feature of their business model. And that is both at when they are a defendant. So I sued them, they were a defendant. But they are, in numerous cases, a plaintiff, where they actually will sue and go after people, whether it's like you infringed on copyright or blah, blah, blah. And you don't have the world's largest legal team unless that is a revenue generating department. And I just learned from meeting with all of these like attorneys they hired, and ultimately I met one person that worked at Meta, that they had such an elitist attitude. And really, I would say the reason they lost the case against this little baker barista from New Hampshire is because they didn't take me seriously. They had such a sort of let them eat cake attitude about me, where like at one point in the hearing, this person who worked for Meta, worked for Mark Zuckerberg, was like, Your Honor, we're only talking about $1,000. That's a really nominal amount of money. And I'm like, nominal? I'm sorry that it's like one day on your yacht, but you know, this is like make or break for me here. And yeah, they just treated me they were so arrogant the whole time. Yeah. And it just sort of revealed like, oh, these people are not like, we work for a social media company that connects communities and it's like, no, these are oligarchs. These are oligarchs that have found a way to basically infiltrate every aspect of waking life. And what is clear about that is one of their major defenses the whole time was, Your Honor, we're just a free website. You know, sort of pretending like I just happened to glance at Instagram and then my account got deleted. Like, no, they know that they are the backbone of the way people start businesses, start nonprofits, market themselves, build and organize around communities, share their feelings and politics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then to turn around and be like, oh, we're just a free website. It's like, oh, this is all about just serving your bottom line. And the lengths that you would have to go to do that would be never staffing human beings to resolve conflict. Because if you had a genuine interest in managing a platform that's like, we're going to build connection and community, you'd be like, well, then we also need to resolve challenges that might arise when we try to do that very messy task. And they're like, we're not interested in that. Here is this like labyrinth of an FAQ help desk that takes you back to the beginning every time you get somewhere. And we are never going to put a person behind it because that would cost us money and that would eat into our profit margin. And so those are the ways in which I think this idea that it's a corporation undermine its ability to do what we think on the face of it. It's like, oh, this like ambitious, nice goal of like connecting people and bringing people together. And it's a bunch of BS.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that a point that you made is that it is part of everybody's, waking, breathing, every moment of their lives kind of connects to Facebook for a lot of people, especially business owners, people in organizations. So, moving forward, how so many of us are like, we've got to get off Meta. What are your thoughts on moving forward, as a business owner, a member of this community? You're such an incredible figure in this community. How do you feel about connecting in person, post Meta?
I mean, I love connecting in person. Obviously, I'm like, I have built a space around like connection and like,
Yeah.
to me, there in some ways through my cafe, I live the fake promise, the broken promise of social media, because there's so many times where I'll be like, I have a new bubble tea or a drag show, and I have 10,000 followers on Instagram, and that's going to bring the masses. It doesn't. It doesn't. I'm sorry to say, but it doesn't, unless you're a celebrity with millions of followers, it actually doesn't move the needle. The things that I actually see that people show up in my shop for is they say, my friend Emily told me about this new latte or blah, blah, blah. Or, oh my gosh, I heard about this dance that you're doing. Like, it actually is not as effective as we've even been telling people it is. And I'm guilty of it. Like, I'll sometimes be like, oh, we have this new special. I got to boost an ad on Instagram or whatever. It's like, it almost never matters. The things that I sort of notice as like improving the margin is when people have developed a real and genuine interest in what I'm doing, or somebody they know and trust has done that. And so much of what the promise is like, yeah, spend more money on us, spend more time on us, and we'll make you big. It's not real. It's not real. And so I think in so many ways, getting back to, oh, how did I learn about the best cafe to go to in downtown Dover before I was on Instagram, or what events I want to go to, and like really being intentional about that. And I do think, I've had a lot of conversations since posting that I'm getting off, and everyone's like, where are you going? What's your blue sky? What's your Discord? I definitely am like, I'm getting on Craigslist. I have a Craigslist account. That's where you'll find me in the community comment section. Misconnections.
Bringing it back.
Everyone's like, where are you going? And, I'll go somewhere. I'll probably make some. But there is some part of me that I'm like, and not to be judgmental, but I'm like, you guys, I don't know. And I am not getting off of Instagram because I want a replacement to Instagram. Mm-hmm. I am getting off Instagram because I have now seen, or at least felt that I have seen, where it is going, and I want to be part of it. And there's just some part of me that in this stage of my life and in this moment, I'm like, let it break, let that routine I have break down of like using this particular app, of engaging and communing, and allow something else to come up, rather than being like, I have a lot of like very risk averse friends in this moment who are like, well, I would get off, but I just can't lose Facebook Marketplace, or I would get off, but I really need the green circles to like post their straps. And I'm like, whatever the like underlying need that is about, whether like selling your couch or validation for how hot you are without a shirt on, you will still have that need and the ability to solve that problem after. And you don't need to know what that thing is because I think what I have always struggled with every time, like, when Twitter got turned into X and then it got creepy and neo-Nazi, like, everyone was like, let's find the Twitter replacement before we go to Twitter. And so everyone sort of kept a value. Is it Mastodon? Is it Blue Sky? Is it Threads? Is it whatever? And there's just some part of me that's like, we can't, just as any of these very popular apps didn't necessarily know ahead of time that what they were was going to be popular. I mean, like TikTok used to be about lip syncing and dancing, and became this sort of like dominant force, especially for younger people. I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm ready to actually live a life that doesn't have the answer to that question, because I'm not just trying to continue on. with the same routine.
Because if we just replace one with another, we're just going to kind of keep ending up in this cycle. And I think that that's the sort of philosophy change a lot of us are experiencing right now. Is we've been doing this for a lot of us older folks, is like as long as we have been
How dare you.
online, as a community, we've been doing this since we were very, very young. And
I
so we
know.
don't even think about it. We just kind of, it's just part of what we do with our hand, right?
Yep.
And it's and to break that, I think, is really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like you really are making a difference by bringing it to the attention of those people, because there might have been people who follow you and saw that you were getting off of Meta, and for like anybody that's posting that, and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about it, I like truly feel chained to it. And so I think it's liberating for people to just live like literally offline. Like, what?
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine? And that's the thing, is I want to imagine. I want to just, like, I'm not trying to be Pollyanna about this, about like, you guys, it's so obvious, like life is so peachy and green. Like, there is going to be moments where I'm like, oh, I have a really great idea. Or like, I'm starting a new business and I want to launch it. Or like, I'm running for office, so all these reasons. And I'm like, I have figured out a way before, like I just, I sort of just trust that doing what feels right, especially when it relates to connection. Like I went line dancing at the Fox Run Mall last night. And
That sounds so fun.
yeah, just like a shameless plug for the Fox Run Dance Hall. And I loved it. And I'm like, this is the type of activity that I would seek out and do if I felt lonely or felt bored or felt whatever. And the problem with social media is that it doesn't satisfy any of those feelings, but it gives you just enough to keep you from actually getting to the place. Because I think a lot of people that I'm talking to, some people that I'm talking to, there is this thing of like, they are afraid of being bored. They are afraid of being lonely. They are afraid of being sad. And I'm afraid of all of those things too. But the important feature of many of them is once you are actually overcome by it, you figure out a way to deal with it. And what I have seen for myself and for friends of mine that many of these apps do is they distract us just enough. They make us feel just connected enough. They make us feel happy just enough. They make us feel just validated enough that we don't ever get to the place of being like, I'm really bored and I want to make a change. I want to go out and do something new. I'm really lonely. I want to go meet new people. I'm sad. I want to go indulge in a new hobby or a new thing. And I'm just like, I'm ready to find out what that state will compel me to do, and I don't want to predetermine what it's going to be or look like.
That's really smart. I think that's really cool too.
Yeah, well, we can have a check-in a month from now. I'll be like, I'm back on. I missed it. Oh, no, I don't know. I'm never getting on. I hate Mark Zuckerberg. He's evil, and we're all complicit. Next question.
No, you're right though. I feel like it's kind of like we talk about it at our house as like Google, and our ability to just like get all these different dopamine hits is like a wonder killer, because we're just stepping out of like the actual world around us, and nothing gives us a state of wonder anymore, because we can just look it up or get that little hit that you need, like you were just talking about, that never gets us all the way to what we're looking for. It's just like a little smidge.
Yeah, and I do think there is something important and revealing to me in social media. Like, I've seen this meme before, maybe you've seen it, where it's like a bunch of young kids, like, I don't know, maybe they were Gen Z 5 years ago, and it's like, they're all like they're like at a bus stop or something, and they're all looking at their phones. And like the meme or like the script is like clearly coming from an elder, where it's like, kids these days, like all they're doing is looking at their phone. And it's like very judgmental. And I sort of like get where it's coming, but every time I've seen that type of critique of like young people staring at their phones, I'm like, the thought I always have is, there is a reason they are doing that. Because it's like, if you're on a date in middle school with someone that you really like, you're not looking at your phone. You're the one, like you're excited. When you're looking at your phone, it is because something is missing in your life, that you seek connection of some kind. And young people, and even people our age, do not know that this little phone and the little apps inside the little phone cannot satisfy it. But when we are using it is an expression internally that we crave it, that we want it, that we do need to be socialized, that we do need validation, that we do need community. And so to me, that it is so addictive and that it is so prevalent tells us, yes, we are not satisfied socially. The problem is corporations also know that. And so they designed applications that get us in, and it's like a parasite. If it kills the host or whatever, it doesn't work. It needs to give just enough, because if the satisfaction were over, if you felt like, oh, I'm relieved, you wouldn't go back into it. And it's like was a Hinge or something, like the app designed to be deleted. It's like bullshit. That app is designed to keep us coming back every single time.
Because they have all that data too. Like they are tracking that information, like on the social media side of like what exactly is keeping you coming back to the app. It's like it's drugs, and they treat it like they have the science behind it, and it's kind of insane.
Yeah, and I do the exact same thing that I feel. I work in like the harm reduction space, where thinking about a lot of communities with substance use disorders and active users of drugs. And there's so much around like, why are people using drugs and we got to criminalize it, whatever. And it's like, if people are using drugs, people are in pain. And we should be thinking about what is causing that pain. Drugs aren't causing pain. And I feel the same exact way about social media. If people are using social media, they want to be social. And there's a moment here, separate from my sort of principle of like not supporting oligarchs, that I'm just realizing, yeah, I am not satisfied. I am actually not, I don't know if I'm getting closer to my goal. This might be a TMI story for your podcast, but I'm like a big green circle user.
I don't know what green circle is. I don't know. Like close friends?
So I over a year ago, I went through a breakup, and there's like a period of like sadness and mourning, and will anyone love me, blah blah blah. And a friend of mine was like, Emmett, you got to use the green circle. And I'm like, go on. And people use the green close friends circle for a lot, to share like NSFW takes and like overshare very personal details or whatever. I would say normatively in the gay male space on the internet, the green circle close friends thing is like a flirting, thirst trapping thing. Cool. Almost exclusive. Like, if you are a gay man and you follow a gay man and you see the green circle, that only means one thing is behind that green circle, and it is a shirtless gym selfie.
Nice.
And so it's like, oh, this is like an opportunity to like, flirt and connect with like a you can like literally select the people they're seeing it. And so like I got really into using it and being like, oh, here's like this, whether it's like dudes I would meet on apps or just like cuties I knew or didn't know. And then they would expose you to their green circle and all this stuff. And absolutely, it is extremely self-indulgent. And it was wonderful. And it has been like very great and like validating and like, ooh, like you get the little heart and the little flame emoji. And so I was thinking about like, oh, this is like one facet of like, I live in rural heterosexual New Hampshire. Like, there's not a lot of options. Like, this was like a great outlet of like connecting, sort of quasi-romantically, etc. And I'm going to lose this. But then I thought about it and I'm like, I have visited cities of men who are close friends of mine, like definitely in quotation marks. And I'll be like, hey, let's get coffee. Almost never have I met somebody or formed a real, genuine offline connection with any of these men who like love to send me tongue emojis or I send them little fire emojis. And it's like, oh, it was just that. It was the very limited level of like, we're flirting. And I'm like, oh, if we were at like a dance club or something, you aren't the person that would come up to me or that I would go up to. You'd be like, oh, cute, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want that. I'm sorry. I do not want that. And I'm realizing like, oh, so much of this did satisfy a need in me to be like, should I go out tonight and dress up and look cute, or should I just post a picture of myself from the gym on my Instagram to like 10 people or 80 people? I don't know what it was. And I'm just like, no, I want, even if it's fewer and farther between, I want deeper connection and more substantial, both in like the romantic and sexual space, but also in just like the social and communal space. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, to me, the promise has totally been broken and failed.
Yeah, absolutely. So with what you just said, how would you wrap that into one quick thing that people could use to find that community in person? So you mentioned, going out. Where would you recommend, like, what are your favorite spaces?
Go to Teetotaler. No, I feel like go to your local independent coffee shop. It's been a tough winter for all of us. Honestly, I really hope, this is like we sort of talked about, like, this is just me getting off the app. And I'm going to keep talking and being annoying about it as I'm like kicking and screaming off that app. And then when I'm off the app, I'm going to be like posting flyers up on people's doors, like, get off the app. Zuck. But one of the things I like hope, if there is some momentum of people like come, and maybe it's just all of us millennials being like, oh yeah, we all got on Facebook in like high school, college, and it's over. That was a period, and let's move on. And this is all it took. If that is true, I'm like, we got to bring back dancing. We have to bring back dancing. I'm a big like club dancer. Like I go out to dance clubs, and I am also a big contra dancer. I love square dancing. I love line dancing, and these are spaces like, to me, specifically like square and contra dancing are a lost art and a cultural thing that needs revival, because they are very safe, low barrier to entry spaces that are intergenerational, that they literally teach you the dance. It's not about having skill. It's not about, there's no competition, but there's community in it. You're making eye contact with strangers. You're touching strangers. You are laughing. You're talking. It is such a liberating experience. And every time I go to a contra or a square dance, and it typically is older people that did have this tradition, I'm just like on cloud nine. And these are all not necessarily people that I'm going to then go and sit on a couch with and talk to for an hour, but it just satisfies something so much deeper. And so I'm like, if we can bring more and back and create more density around communal dancing, like we've tapped into something.
I love that so much, because I would never think to do that. But also, like, it's something you can do when you're sober. It's something that you don't have to be like at a bar to go out. It's a way to engage that's different, and it activates a different part of your brain. One thing that we talk about a lot is just getting out of the house, just leaving your house.
Yeah,
is like the biggest first step, I think, for so many people, as we get into our routines of you go to work and you go home and you go to your two places or whatever it is, and that's it. And so finding a third place, especially if it's like an activity like that, is just, I think, so magical and old-timey in a good way.
Yeah, and I think there's like two sides to it of like, we need more people to do it. But also there's not a lot of people hosting it, because they're like, well, no one's going to come out and do it. And so it's sort of like, we do need to kind of like pull the propeller a little bit, because otherwise we're all just sort of waiting for like, again, like, what's the next thing going to be? It's like, it's not Blue Sky, it's not Threads, it's not Discord, it's contra dancing, and it's happening at the Fox Run Dance Hall.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get more people there. We'll work as a team, and we'll use our texts and not our social media presence, because we'll just be sending the link around. Just get everybody out the door.
I'm gonna yell it out my window.
We're going. There's a contra. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that, and I really can we come contra dancing?
Absolutely, yeah. Honestly, when people are like, "Are you starting a newsletter?" I'm like, my newsletter is going to be like, "Catch me dancing at Man Ray 80s night." That's what it's going to be. But I will put that newsletter together.
I would read it.
I think that's needed in the community.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being. Anything else you want to share with like what else would you? Anything else you'd encourage people to do as a small step to improve there? I love hearing about your space at Teetotaler, and you really have created a really special space here for people to come and have that sort of safe space. What advice would you give people when they're looking for something like that in their own community?
What advice would I give? I mean, I think it's definitely one of those, like, if you don't see it, then start it kind of things, because there has been such an evaporation of a culture around communing. I mean, Walmart is to blame for this as much as social media is to blame for it, and like corporate consolidation of just like, yeah, like there's a reason there's not as many cafes or restaurants that you might otherwise think, because it's like there's not as many people doing those things and going out. And especially in New Hampshire, we have a very weak culture around many of these things compared to other spaces, and with a couple sort of exceptions, but like I maybe one exceptional share, and this came from when I was running for office. Sandwich, New Hampshire was part of my my district, so I spent a lot of time up there, sort of nestled under the mountains. Very small town, like one road downtown, 2 restaurants in the entire downtown, always bopping, like a Tuesday afternoon, a Sunday morning, a Wednesday evening. It was like always bopping, because proportionally, on the whole, the people of Sandwich were more disposed to coming together and communing more often than not. The longest running Contra happened in New Hampshire, in New England, in America, I don't know. It happens in Tamworth in the old town hall. It happens every single month to this day for the last 100 years or whatever it is. And it's like, you don't have, I've tried to start new traditions of like things. It's like they fizzle and they fade because there isn't that culture. So there are communities that have demonstrated on the whole, larger commitment towards like, yeah, we're going to go downtown. I mean, fortunately, they don't have a Walmart. They don't have a strip mall. They don't have a mall. And so it's like, by design, in some ways, you end up at these spaces. Right. But then the experience of these spaces is tenfold better. And then the entrepreneurs and the artists that start these things are able to thrive, or at least survive in a market where it is very hard to survive in this sort of space. And so it is about changing that culture of like, how are you spending your time is going to incentivize what people then decide to start and do and build and create. And when people see you starting it, then they're like, oh, maybe we should go roller skating more often, because now there's a place to roller skate or whatever.
I love it. We're all going dancing. That's the plan.
Heck yes. Thank you so much for sitting with us, Emmett.
Yeah.
It's been so cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Everyone go to Teetotaler, Concord, and Dover.
And come dancing.
And come dancing.
Thank you.